Hey guys, so I'm going to read aloud an informational article today about how worms and plants work together to help each other survive. The title of this is Worms to the Rescue. I want you to think about, how do worms help plants? So as I read, I want you to think about the answer to that question. How do you think worms help plants? As I read, I'm going to stop along the way and I'm going to model asking questions because good readers ask questions as they read. So I want you to listen as I ask questions out loud, and you think about the questions you might have as I read also. Here we go. Worms to the rescue. The sunflowers were thirsty, but water ran off the dirt without soaking down to their roots. The sunflowers were hungry for more than sunshine, but there was nothing else. And the hard, dry dirt held the roots too tightly. If the sunflowers could talk, they would have said, "Help." As soon as I read the sunflowers were thirsty, I asked myself this question: why were the sunflowers thirsty? And what does that mean? How can sunflowers be thirsty? As I kept reading, I found out that flowers were thirsty because the water wasn't dripping down into their roots. It was running off the soil instead. So that means they weren't getting the water that they needed. So apparently, plants can be thirsty just like a person can. I can use context clues as I read to help me figure out what the author means in different situations. Let's go on as I keep reading. Those sunflowers needed earthworms to rescue them. Creepy, crawly, squiggly worms slowly tunnel their way through the dirt. With lots of tunnels here and lots of tunnels there, the dirt loosens up. For plants, this loose earth is sort of like a comfy blanket. Water can soak into loose dirt, and plants can drink the water. Roots can grow more easily. Plants and worms help each other. Worms eat dead leaves that fall off the plants. Then the worms poop out castings that the plants can eat. Plants like lots and lots of worms. The more worms, the better. In one backyard, there can be thousands of hidden worms. Worms stay underground because they like to be cool and moist. Sometimes they will come up to the surface when it's dark and cool or rainy. But if the worms can't go back underground after the rain, they may dry out. As I read, I can use context clues to determine the meaning of the word surface. If I look back at paragraph 3, it states that worms stay underground, but will come up when it's dark out. So I know surface is a word that describes where the worms go when they come up. So that means the word surface could mean the top. In this context, the word surface means the ground, or it could be the sidewalk, wherever they're coming out and coming to the top of. When the worms dry out, they can't breathe and they may die. You could easily rescue worms that you find. Carefully take them to a damp dirt where they can crawl underground. If you put the worms in the dirt by your favorite flowers, the flowers will be happier. The worms will rescue your flowers just as you rescued the worms. Let's think about some other questions about how worms might act based on different times of the day, or the weather, or the seasons. What questions are you thinking about how worms might act in different seasons? I might ask myself, what happens to worms in the winter when the weather gets cold? I might also ask myself, what happens to worms in the summer when it's really hot outside? Because I know my information said that worms like cool, moist places to live. In the summer times when it's hot and dry, what happens to worms? After listening to this passage, I can recount how worms help plants survive. Worms eat dead leaves that fall off the plants. Then the worms poop, providing food for the plants. Now, let's think about other key ideas or key details from the section that helped us understand how worms help plants. As we think back, we know that plants are happier with worms around. They can fertilize the soil and they can help plants to grow bigger and better. So, worms are important to the soil as well as to plants. They make a good team and they work together. I want to ask you a couple more questions to think about as we finish this text. Where do worms spend most of their time? That's right, in the soil. Why do you think they spend most of their time there? Very good, because it's cold and damp under the ground, so they're able to stay cool and moist. Can you think of other living things that rely on each other to survive? As we go through this lesson this week, we're going to be thinking about lots of other living things that depend on each other to survive. You know, as humans, we depend upon plants and trees because of the oxygen that we breathe. So we breathe in oxygen and we release out carbon dioxide. Well, plants take in that carbon dioxide and they give off oxygen. So humans and plants or trees work together in the environment. We depend upon each other to survive. What are some other animals that you can think of that depends on each other to survive? We're going to learn about some more this week. I hope that as I read, you were able to think about some questions and you were able to listen as I modeled asking questions when I read. Good readers ask questions as they read, and that's what helps us understand our text and helps us learn. Good job. I'll see you next time. Bye.